Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's August 15th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and this is going to be a quick one. There's not a lot of trades today anyway, but I did this. I did the chart lesson once, and for some reason I had absolutely no volume, so it was all for naught. And so I deleted that one, and I'm going to redo this. And again, it's going to be a pretty quick one. Because I don't have the energy to do the whole thing and talk about every single thing I talked about before. Although I think it was only 20 minutes before. I probably knock this one down to 15 or something and just leave some of the some small points out that probably weren't that important anyway. But um, anyway, here's a look at the daily chart, and we're still trending higher. The we had the break of the Cayenne channel here, and you can see it's starting to hold again. Somebody else sent me this bigger channel here. I really hadn't looked out that far yet, but I guess it's about time we start looking for a while. We're continuing to go higher here when we were expecting a sell-off, and this could be it. I mean, if you put this bigger channel on here, you draw it off the first two swings. I mean, you can see the midlines fitting on both sides all the way down, so it looks pretty accurate to me. So good eye by this trader. Um, that they spotted this so they didn't have to come to me to find it. They found it on their own, and pretty much I hadn't looked out this far yet, but it definitely looks valid. You can see how severely overbought we are. I mean, we're way above the brown line even now, closing above it 2 days in a row, and the new day is open. Of course, that doesn't mean anything. That could change considerably between now and tomorrow morning. But we hadn't even been back to the midline since back in probably late July, early August. So it's been 2 or 3 weeks since we've even been back to the midline. So this thing is severely overbought. Um, the chart still tells me we're going lower. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But I don't see any reason to back off of my claims that the chart still says we're going lower. My experience says, hey, this chart still says we're going to get a sell-off here and a retest of the lows. Now, it may not happen. We've talked about this off and on for weeks now, and we're continuing to go higher. As long as this thing goes higher, we're going with it. But when it turns, I got a feeling we're going to get a strong sell-off and a new low, and probably an opportunity for some really quick and fast moves. So, but we'll see. You just never know what the market's going to throw at you, and if it continues to go higher, well, guess what? We're going to continue to buy. So we'll take a look at it every morning, and whatever the market throws at us, that's what we're going to trade. But just looking out ahead, trying to get a peek at the future, we may be getting close to our top here. If it wasn't for the two-tiered channel that we're looking at here, this trend line, I would say if we get through this resistance, this is going to be our next target here, and followed by that will be the highs, this kind of double top right here, right across here. Then after that will be the next swing highs until all the way back up here. But just looking at this channel, this looks like it could be valid, so we'll see what happens. If we keep going higher, again, we're going to keep going with it. But anyway, let's flip over to the intraday chart. Again, there's not a lot of trades today, so it won't take long. But let's flip over there, go through the trades, and wrap this day up. Okay, again, I'm going to move through this pretty quickly, so it's going to be a rather quick chart lesson. But you can see clearly there's two legs up. We went a little bit higher here before prices sold off, and we closed back down here below the measured move. So there's clearly a two-legged. There's a leg down, correction, another leg down. So there's two-legged correction there, and that's usually the center of the pattern. So measure this first move up and then look for a measured move. So that would have given you a good target once we broke higher. I mean, it looked like it was going to be another range day. We get this every day. It looks like it's going to go one way or the other, and then it ends up shooting sideways for a bit and then suddenly rallying or selling off. Mostly it's been rallying. But we had a couple of days where it started off higher and then sold off as the day went on. But the higher we get, the more likely eventually we're going to see a big sell-off one day here. That's my opinion. We'll just have to wait and see. how it goes though. But let's get to the trades. I'm going to move through these pretty quickly because, like I said, I've already spent 20 minutes on this and I'm back to scratch here. But 7 o'clock came really right down through here on this move lower where we bottomed out. We came back. You might look at this as a triple test up here. I'm not crazy about this trade. I marked it green. It's a really big bar. I say really big. In the scheme of things, it's only 22 ticks. But for no more volume and price action than that, that's a pretty big bar. If you follow the ATR, that would probably be outside the ATR. The ATR would be much smaller than that. So that's a risky bar. But maybe you take it. Maybe you look at that as a triple test. Of course, we bounce there, and you don't get any chance to buy this. Don't try to pick bottoms. I mean, just looking at the daily chart and how this thing keeps rallying, that's a good example of why we can't try to pick bottoms, because the thing can go much farther to the downside or much further to the upside. Rallies can go much further than you think they can, and sell-offs can go much further than you think they're going to. So it's really fruitless to try to pick those tops and bottoms. But anyway, we don't get a chance to, there's no reversal here or anything. It just keeps going higher, and then the next thing you know, we're working sideways. Notice we do get a close outside this green, and we do make a new high, and there's, by that time, there's this pink channel, and you got a second entry short on a lower high here right at the highs. I like going short there. I made this one green, and the reason was, make sure you listen to this, because somebody will end up asking me or posting in the forum anyway. But notice how we bounced there at the midline so many times without going back to the lows. Well, with no more room than that back to the midline, what if we bounce there again? The only evidence we have says we're bouncing there every time for maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars in a row. So what if when we come back, this bar bounces there too, which it could. So you got to be careful with this one, because it could bounce at the midline. You need room to get out before you get back to that midline. So that's why I marked it green. I still like it to some degree, but you got to be careful of it. But then notice where we bounced, we got a higher low here off a bounce off the lows. And every time we've touched that low, we went higher. And so there's a good chance that's what's going to happen right here. And so the problem with this one is it is a little bit congested. There's 2 bars there with really small or no body, and there's 3 bars stacked side by side. So that's congestion. So there's some reason to be concerned, because we're not getting rejection there. We should, you'd expect this to bounce off that line and the trend line there if that's going to be the case and go higher, and it doesn't. It takes it a while to go higher. So I'm not crazy about that one. I marked it. There's a higher low here, but you can't go long into that double top. It pushes on through and it's chopping sideways, and it comes back to the trend line again, and you actually get a close outside the trend line here, but no signal bar. You just this thing all the way up doesn't give you a chance to enter it. And then notice how we came up short up here. We didn't quite get back to the upper trend channel line, and so that could mean we get a break here, which we do. And so even though there's a second entry, look at that sideways stuff, the congestion. That's the first close outside. Don't be that. That's a sucker punch right there. Don't take it. I guarantee you some of you watching probably went long right there thinking, okay, it's a second entry, first one, but look at the clues here. Look at the congestion. And that's what happens. They trap you, it runs to a new low, and then it makes a quick run up. But the signal bar is not any good here, and I wouldn't take, if this would have closed real bullish above the EMA, maybe you go long there. I mean, that would have worked, but you don't know that ahead of time. So, and it doesn't go very far, and then next thing you know, it's running down. And again, I don't see any chance to get short. There is a second entry short here, because you run up, you get a first entry. I think it breaks lower first and then goes up and then comes back down. So it's an engulfing bar. Maybe you go short right there, but if you do, you get stopped out only to see it go. Well, of course, this is another engulfing bar, so technically you shouldn't get stopped out here. Technically, if you did go on either one of them, you got to put, if you went short here, you got to put your stop above here until this bar closes, then you put it 1 tick above. But when it broke lower here and then turns up, then your stop down here would have to go below here to this close if you're going long. But if you're getting stopped out, you still got to consider, hey, this is still another engulfing bar. Should I leave my stop up here or move it? And if you move it, you get stopped out. So it's just not a good setup. So there's a lot of sideways stuff there, a lot of dojis. There's a nobody. Just be careful with those. Drops on down. I don't see any chance to enter. This one I called a double bottom, and then a first entry, second entry, and a nice bullish bar. I like going long right there. But you can clearly see that. This just looks like sideways. Everything's inside this bar. You could argue there's still 2 legs up and a second entry. So if you did look at this as the failure, maybe you even think about going long there. Even if you did, you could still consider this as a trap because it looks like they're fooled everybody and it's going lower, and then suddenly it turns up. This is definitely a trap, but definitely don't go short right there. Not with that doji bar closing above the EMA and bouncing off of it. Just too big a chance that it makes another leg up or something. So you're not really looking to go short or long here, but when you see this trap, that's a good indication we got them trapped, and you probably get an easy scalp out of it. Of course, you get the break of this channel here, move to a new high, but I'd wait on the lower high, which comes here, and then there's still a lot of sideways stuff. So let's see if let's wait and see if we get a reversal, and that comes here. So that's a good setup and a quick, easy move. Get your close outside, and notice that you get a first entry and a second entry. I made it green though. We're probably going to test this lower after this, and there's probably enough room between there and the EMA, but there's been no close outside this. Let's just give it a color because I never gave it one. There's no close outside this cayenne colored channel here, and so it's really risky to take that one without a really good signal bar. And even though it probably fits the criteria, it probably closes in the lower 130. It's real close, and you can see it would have worked, but do you really want to risk that? It runs, makes a new low, and then we're going the other way. And notice here, you run up, you get a first entry, and you actually get a second entry short right there. So there's a failed second entry short when this breaks higher, but it's also a first entry, second entry short when it breaks higher. So I like that trade. It's a little bit sideways, but because of the failure too, I like that trade. You should get a scalp out of that, maybe some more. It runs on up. You would expect it probably to at least come back and test these highs, which it does. And it looks like it's going to sell off. Don't try to get short here. Every time it makes a new high, just wait and see if you get it. By that time, you got a clear trend line working up here, but you can't really go long into that strong resistance. So even on the last break there, I wouldn't take that one. And it does run on up, and you just don't get a chance to enter it. But if you're patient, in a few minutes, you get a first entry and a second entry right at the key entry point, right off the EMA. And if you're not happy with that, a few minutes later, you get a second entry short here that fails. It breaks lower and turns up. And it's right off that key entry point with a nice signal bar. And then a few minutes after that, you get a first entry. And it pulls back and breaks lower and turns up. So when it goes past that bar, it's a second entry long. Another second entry. And then it just makes a new high and kind of works sideways. You would think that's probably about all of it, but it actually pushes up a couple more times, makes that measured move, and then tries to sell off. And notice what happens. You're coming down, you get a first entry long and a second entry long, but you got a new low there, and you get a first entry short, second entry short. The problem with this one is that congestion. Doesn't matter the signal bar's kind of neutral. But when all three of those bars are kind of doji type neutral bars, you got to be real careful with them. I marked it green because the odds are we're probably going to make a new low here. And we could turn down completely since we have a measured move. But this thing finds some more support and goes higher, but I don't see anything I'd want to buy here. There is a double bottom here, but this makes a new low, and there's not a lot of room to the midline, the EMA. And notice last time we didn't even get back to the same highs. It did this time, but that's a concern right there, especially thinking right here, because it could make another leg down. And it just kind of keeps chopping upwards. But I don't see any chance. I don't see anything you really want to enter on any of these. This is the only one that maybe right here it's a lower high, but it doesn't really break lower. But notice that it is a lower high, and there's a lot of resistance right there on the measured move. So maybe you take that trade as a lower high. I meant to mark it green. I'm just not crazy about it, but it's one to consider. And you can see we did come back down and test the breakout again, but it actually went higher. And that's the other concern here. That's the first close outside on this channel. So even though we made a measured move, it doesn't mean we can't retest the high, because we did. We actually made a big leg up, a little correction, and made another leg up to a new high before we sold off. So this market just keeps finding ways to go higher, so be real careful selling this thing. So just not a lot of trades today. There's a few in here, really from about 9:15 to maybe 11 o'clock, 11:20, and then after that, nothing. Before that, not much, and then after that, not much. So anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Like I said, I've had to do this twice today because we had no volume the first time. So I'm hoping, I'm watching over there, and I see the volume level going up and down while I'm talking. So I assume I got audio this time. We'll have to see. Again, I don't have any idea what happened to it last time. It worked for 5 minutes, and then it was totally blank, and then the last 5 minutes it came back again. So I don't know if something was interfering with my wireless headphones or just what happened, but maybe I paused it and forgot to unpause it. I don't know. It's just really odd that I lost all the audio on the video. But I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.